The past little while, we've been discussing obscure secrets and Easter eggs from every Pokemon generation, and when it comes to Gen 5, the whole thing could more or less be described as obscure itself. Stylistically, it was a huge departure for the series, and a lot of things just felt different about it. Today, we're going to be talking about the obscurest of the obscure, with some of the most unusual secrets, Easter eggs, facts, and other interesting tidbits from the Unova-focused games. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. Two of the most important characters from Black and White and their sequels are N and Ghetsis. N is regarded as one of the most well-written characters in Pokemon history, and Ghetsis one of the better evil team leaders to say the least. Some details on the conceptualization and creation of these characters were given by Junichi Masuda at a fan event in 2012, including showing some of their original concept art, and the concept art that was shown for both characters is pretty much the definition of the word obscure. When it comes to N's art, you can tell that it's him, but the depiction is very abstract, and there are some differences in the design. Ghetsis, meanwhile, in his original art, is completely unrecognizable. Not only does the art itself have that very abstract quality to it, but this depiction of Ghetsis in no way bears any similarity to the final design. In fact, it couldn't be much more different if it tried. These very strange iterations of such iconic characters are head-scratchers to say the least, and it makes you wonder what kind of intentions the developers could have originally had for them. One location in the original Black and White games is known as Challenger's Cave, and it operates much the same way that Cerulean Cave does in the original Red and Blue version, where you can only access the cave if you've defeated the Elite Four. Something peculiar is mentioned in this cave, as Ace Trainer Beverly will say that there is a story that states that a legendary Pokemon is said to live in the cave, and that at one point this Pokemon had a student Pokemon that it was training. Despite being a somewhat detailed story, there is no legendary Pokemon that actually lives in the cave in the games, and certainly no student Pokemon. All things considered, this is a weird thing to have mentioned if it just isn't true, and it makes you wonder if it's a sign that at some point in development there was a legendary Pokemon here. If that's the case, who could it have been? Well, the mention of a student Pokemon alongside it makes me think of the Swords of Justice, as the student Pokemon could very well be Keldeo, but it seems odd that Pokemon like these would appear exclusively in a post-game area. Maybe this was an area originally designated for a Keldeo event before plans were changed, or maybe it was something different entirely. Whatever the case may be, it certainly raises a lot of eyebrows about who these two mystery Pokemon possibly are. In Black 2 and White 2, there is an interesting side quest that can be taken part in after completing the main story. In Humilao City, there will appear a newlywed couple once you beat the game that, when talked to, will unlock the quest, which involves going to the top of the Celestial Tower to ring the bell there. However, in order to do so, you have to defeat 4 former lovers of the groom. Now, this probably sounds like a quirky enough of a side quest all on its own, but to add to the quirkiness, the former lovers' names are Jan, Ilse, Lana, and Tammy, which spell out the word jilt when taking the first initial of each of their names, which means to suddenly reject a lover. The same holds true for their Japanese names as well, as the beginning syllables of all of their names spell out the word motokano, which means ex-girlfriend. This next one doesn't really have any extra significance to it, at least that we know at this time, but it certainly seems like more is going on here than meets the eye. Bianca, one of your rivals in the original Black and White games, bears an uncanny similarity to the rival of the previous generation, Barry from Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. Both wear outfits that are orange, white, and green in color, and both have blonde hair that is even styled in a somewhat similar way, almost as if these characters are male and female versions of each other. Any significant sort of character in Pokemon, especially one as important as a rival, always have very distinct and individual looks, so to see two rivals in back-to-back generations look so similar to one another is very strange. Maybe Barry was originally going to be a female rival and his female design was revived for Gen 5, or maybe it's just a huge coincidence. Knowing Game Freak, I would bet on the former before I'd bet on the latter, but it's likely that we will never know for sure. Following that is something that I have brought up in the past, but it's one of my favorite things that I have discovered in my time on YouTube. So during the days of Black and White's promotion, there were rumors and supposed leaks everywhere, just like they always are for new Pokemon games. Well, at the time, one supposed leak surfaced, which came from someone who, at the time, was seen as a fairly credible source, and they reported a few interesting details. They stated that there would be 157 new Pokemon in this generation, and that a large green Cobra Pokemon would act as the third legendary to Reshiram and Zekrom. Well, if a large green Cobra Pokemon that is the third legendary of a trio sounds eerily familiar to you, it's because we got just that in the very next generation with Zygarde, and the total number of Pokemon reported by this person at the time was just one more than the official number of 156. So was Zygarde actually going to be a Unova Pokemon at some point before it was held back and saved for Gen 6? If not, this is a ridiculously accurate coincidence considering Gen 6 was more than 3 years away at the time, but with all of the crazy leaks that have come out about Pokemon over the years, I would say that this has a decent shot at actually being legit. Two of the biggest pillars of the Pokemon franchise are the games and the anime, and usually the anime references the games a ton as it is based on the games after all. But every once in a while, the reverse will also happen where the games actually reference the anime, and one of these such references happens in Black and White too. During the summer, at night, in the garden in Striaton City, Stunfisk will appear in the overworld, which is a direct nod to the anime since Silon, one of the gym leaders of Striaton City, owns a Stunfisk in the anime. One of the weirdest things to ever happen in Pokemon history occurred during the Gen 5 timeframe, and while it wasn't the product of the Pokemon Company themselves, it's far too strange to leave out of a video like this. In 2012, before the release of Black and White 2, PETA, or People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, released a parody Pokemon game on their website called Pokemon Black and Blue. This game is just about as ridiculous as you'd expect coming from someone like PETA, as it depicts various Gen 5 characters in Pokemon as being psychotic, drunk, covered in blood, and even the Pokemon themselves brutally abused with parts missing from their bodies. The idea of the game is that Pokemon trainers are bad and evil and abuse their Pokemon, and admittedly uneducated criticism of the franchise we've all heard before. The player plays as Pikachu trying to free other Pokemon like the Unova starters from their trainers. It goes without saying that this is a pretty ridiculous portrayal, even by PETA's standards, but at the very least it serves as an interesting tidbit in Pokemon's storied history. In Pokemon Black and White, there is a really interesting feature that I'm sure has largely gone unnoticed by most players. When examining your Pokemon on the summary screen, you can actually interact with the Pokemon's sprite, which will cause it to flip around and show its back sprite. The Pokemon will even stay in the position you left them upon exiting the summary page as well. Not the biggest revelation in the world, but considering most people have probably skipped over this without knowing it was a thing, I thought it was a neat little detail to include. One location in all the Generation 5 games that doesn't have to be visited in order to complete the game, but is still worth your time to go to, is the P2 Laboratory. Located near New Vima Town, the P2 Lab is Team Plasma's secret laboratory where they created Genesect and presumably conducted other experiments as well. But the most interesting thing about this place actually lies in its name. The lab actually shares its name with the name of a Masonic lodge in Italy known as the Propaganda Do, or P2 Lodge, that has been implicated in a number of different crimes and unsolved mysteries. This caused the name of the lab in the Italian and Spanish versions of the game to be renamed, being known as Laboratorio PNP and Laboratorio P+P respectively. It makes you wonder why the P2 Lab would have received this name in the first place with that kind of connection out there, but it certainly makes for an interesting story. And to round out our list, we couldn't go through the video without mentioning the Nimbasa City Ferris wheel. There are some interesting things that happen on this Ferris wheel to say the least, some more well known than others. One of those lesser known things is that in the Japanese and French versions of Black and White 2, nursery aide June actually tells the player that she is a man disguised as a woman in order to be a nursery aide, but this was removed from the English version, where instead she talks about how much she is sweating during your ride on the Ferris wheel, which is arguably even more strange. Well, there you have it. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and a comment, and subscribe if you're new for more Pokemon content all the time. You can also support the channel further by checking out my Pokemon podcast over on the UCast Studios YouTube channel, where I have really fun discussions about all kinds of Pokemon stuff. And you can check out my Pokemon Cardinal project, which is set to premiere here pretty soon. With that said, I'll actually be back on Tuesday, as I am taking this Saturday off, not only for the 4th of July holiday, but for some personal reasons I mentioned in a previous community post, and on Twitter if you'd like to know more. I will see you guys very soon though, and until then, as always, I love you all, and I will smell you guys later.